called Draining the Swamp. It is a real-life Game of Thrones. Here's an excerpt from it I want to talk to him about. Connecting the dots, he says, the evidence that matters. For almost 18 years, Team Clinton, Team Bush, and Team Obama have allowed a small library project in Arkansas to mushroom into the largest set of international charity frauds ever attempted. That's the central thing here. So we're going to have him connect the dots for us with the Team Bush. He says, why Team Bush? We'll talk about that in just a moment. And he's also got the usual suspects, Robert Mueller, James Comey, and Rod Rosenstein. Let's talk about this. First of all, why Team Bush? Tell the audience why Team Bush is involved in this as well.
Well, on January 20th, 2001, George W. Bush became president, and, it took him a while through transition to get his various people in there, but a parting gift for the Bush team was the fact that Bill Clinton pardoned the diabolical Mark Rich, who was the fugitive from justice, tax cheat, and I would say swindler, despite the fact that this man had never faced justice, never been sentenced. Bill Clinton, in the middle of the night, pardoned him. So that gave rise to an immediate set of investigations, both congressional investigations under Dan Burton's oversight, I think, committee, and also in the Southern District of New York, an immediate criminal investigation was opened up into whether the Clinton Foundation was actually used as a slush fund. And there are, in that article there are links to the FBI vault file. There's 2 dumps of about 600 pages total of information that shows that this investigation proceeded for 4 years, from 2001 to 2005. Yet, despite having, obvious signs of fraud, you can see it on the Clinton Foundation website. There are no audits on the Clinton Foundation website for this period.
That's right. He completely covered that up. They knew there was fraud there with Mark Rich, fraud with the Clinton Library Foundation Initiative, whatever. And for 4 years, the Bush administration, W. Bush administration, basically just went through the motions but didn't really do a prosecution. The guy that was in charge of that, largely, as you point out here, was James Comey.
Right. So what happened was, in the beginning, it was Mary Jo White in 2001. And if you look in that vault file, you'll see that there was a lot of activity when she was U.S. attorney prosecuting the case. There were subpoenas, there were interviews, there were all kinds of records. But then Comey comes in January of 2002, and, the investigation just spins its wheels. Also during this time frame, shockingly, Mueller from September 4th, 2001 to September 4th, 2013 as head of the FBI. Rosenstein from 2001 to 2005, who was a justice, I believe, and he was the person who would decide which tax matters would get prosecuted. So That's right. That was his jurisdiction. That, just like we saw with McCabe, this is the guy who was getting lots of money for a state race, Senate state race, massive amount of money from Clinton cronies, and he's the guy who's in charge of the Clinton email investigation. So here we have Rod Rosenstein, who is part of where he was in the Department of Justice. He was supposed to enforce charity fraud cases, and he presided over a do-nothing investigation for the Clintons over that. Right, and then also Christopher Wray from 2003 to 2005. He was a justice looking at prosecuting frauds like Enron. He does nothing about this. So it shouldn't have taken 4 years to figure out from the inside, with the awesome power that the FBI and Justice have, to subpoena people. There were grand juries could be. In addition, why were there no indictments? Why does everything spin its wheels? And there has to be a record of all this in the FBI real records, and there has to be a record of this in the IRS files. And guess who was sitting on top of all the IRS files from 2001 to 2013, mid-2013, pertaining to charities? Lois Lerner. So, I mean, this is I'm actually a private investor, and I've been doing investigative journalism, but I'm certainly not somebody, a 20-year veteran special agent of the FBI who would know what's missing from the files. I mean,
and you were able to do that. You were able to do that with less information than they had. I mean, with what was in the public domain, you were able to do that because people with law enforcement investigative powers, they can get to documents that you're not going to be seeing. But it's there in open, plain view for the public to see if they want to look.
Right. Right?
Yeah,
and so
absolutely amazing.
To me, David, there's no question this is the largest set of unprosecuted charity frauds in history. But the remaining questions to me are how many people still working in the FBI and the IRS and the Department of Justice knew of these frauds and elected to give them a pass and cover them up and maybe gain advantages over people connected with the frauds. I mean, this reeks to high heaven.
And as we get rid of one of these guys, the next guy to come in and take his place is also knee-deep with the Clintons as well. You know, Comey goes, and we get McCabe, who's knee-deep with the Clintons. He has just now resigned, but, you know, he was acting director for a while. They put in Christopher Wray, and as you point out, he's involved in all this. So we got Mueller, we got Comey, we got Rosenstein, we got Christopher Wray. All these guys, it's like you get rid of one of them, and the next person, it's like the Clintons not only have a global initiative, but it seems to have globally affected everybody in D.C. It's been on the take with these people.
Right, and so, you know, I think from public reports, I think that our federal government has been taking action, and I'm hopeful that things will happen. But it's time to gin up. You know, the state of Texas Attorney General could do something about this, and attorneys general, particularly in red states. South Carolina has very tough charity laws. The filings for the Clinton Foundation in South Carolina are abysmal. They're obvious fraud. Same in Georgia. Many states. You know, if the feds are not going to move on this, the states are going to have to move on it. And I know international governments are watching this very, very closely.
Wow. Yeah, that's absolutely. It's very interesting because there's so many different layers of this. As people know, so many people know now about the emails, but we're only figuring out just now as we're seeing these statements coming out from Campbell, the guy who was they had a gag order on him. And it's interesting, I see that we've got now the usual suspect, Michael Isikoff, out there attacking him in the press, the guy who knew first about the Monica Lewinsky thing. And he says, well, it got spiked by my higher-ups, but he didn't report it. Matt Drudge reported it. That's why it went big. But Michael Isikoff didn't report it. And, of course, he was the guy that they leaked information to and then referenced his articles in order to get a FISA report. And now he's taking the lead in terms of trying to undermine the credibility of this guy who has put out this very detailed document that's there. But, again, going back to the Team Bush thing, because I think that's something for a lot of people to understand the bipartisan nature of this corruption. We now got George Bush. New article today from ABC News says, yeah, the Russians, it's the Russians. They're meddling in our elections, in 2016 elections. And that's why we need to have NATO and so forth. I mean, there is no difference. As you pointed out, it's very important for people to see this. The fact that they slow walked or set on this investigation using these same people. Everybody likes to say Mueller is a Republican and so forth. Yeah, he's part of the bipartisan corruption team in Washington, D.C., isn't he, Charles?
Absolutely, and you know, I can leave you with one thought. I have the hidden agreement dated November 18th, 2004, that wherein we the people were defrauded by the Clinton Foundation. They made false representations about the state of the Clinton Foundation. It was in a diabolical shape. It had begun promoting HIV/AIDS drugs around the world with no authority, and that agreement alone would sink the Clinton Foundation, and people should have seen this. It's in our National Archives. It was an agreement with our National Archives. Why has nobody done anything about this since November 18th, 2004?
It's absolutely amazing. It is taking a very long time, and it is causing us to worry that maybe they're just preparing the public, giving us a little bit of this at a time and dripping it out, kind of like they dripped out the Ed Snowden leaks. Let's hope that that is the case, because we saw very quietly just before Christmas, we saw the Justice Department come out and say, we're going to go after certain individuals and we're going to confiscate their income. In other words, treating it like a RICO statute, which I've seen that abused a great deal, but applying that to international organizations. And a lot of the people they specifically named, at least half of them, had close ties to these Clinton structures. So perhaps that's the way they're going to come after them. But thank you for joining us, Charles Ortel. You can find him on charlesortel.com and Twitter at Charles Ortel. Thank you, Charles. Very interesting. Somebody's got to pick that ball up and run with it.
My pleasure, David. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah. If anybody's listening, here's how you get the Clintons. All right. Thanks for joining us today.